Essay number 78, What You Find in Solitude. Loneliness is just an idea. Sit with that for a second. All that pain you feel when you're alone, all that desperate need for someone, anyone to be there with you. It's not real. It's a story you're telling yourself about what being alone means. You've been taught that being alone equals being lonely, that solitude equals suffering, that if you're not surrounded by people, something must be wrong with you. But what if I told you that you can be more alone in a crowded room than you've ever been by yourself? What if I told you that the loneliest people are often the ones who are never actually alone? Here's what's actually happening when you feel lonely. You're not missing other people. You're missing yourself. You've become so dependent on interaction to understand who you are that without it, you don't know what to do with yourself. Without someone to perform for, without someone to reflect off of, without someone to validate you, you feel like you cease to exist. But interaction has almost nothing to do with how other people actually treat you. It has everything to do with how you perceive yourself based on that treatment. It's not about how many people love you, it's about what that love means to you. It's about how it changes your internal narrative. We think companionship reinforces connection, but really it reinforces dependence. We think we need someone else's presence, but what we really need is their approval, their acceptance, their confirmation that we exist, that we matter, that we're okay. You are only as alone as you think you are. Read that again. You are only as alone as you think you are. To the extent that you believe you're a separate being, cut off from everything and everyone around you, that's how lonely you can be. But that separation, it's an illusion, a construct, a lie you've been telling yourself for so long you forgot it was a lie. Getting past the idea that aloneness equals loneliness isn't just important, it's essential. Because there's something profound that only exists in solitude, something you can't find anywhere else, something you've been running from your entire life. In solitude, you stop working and start being. You stop performing and start existing. You stop defining yourself by the roles you play, the good employee, the supportive friend, the dutiful child, the perfect partner. All those masks fall away, and you're left with what? You're left with you, the real you, the one you've been hiding from. In solitude, you stop seeing yourself within the context of society. There's no one to compare yourself to, no one to impress, no one to disappoint. You stop filtering every thought through the lens of, what would they think? You stop censoring yourself before you've even finished the thought. You don't just start to hear yourself think. You realize there's a difference between you and your thoughts. You are a person, observing a mind. You are consciousness, watching thoughts arise and pass like clouds in the sky. And something incredible happens when you stay in that space long enough. You begin to communicate with yourself in ways that language never allowed. You access a deeper knowing, a truer understanding, something that can't be put into words because it exists before words. Aldous Huxley wrote, "In spite of language, in spite of intelligence and intuition and sympathy, one can never really communicate anything to anybody. The essential substance of every thought and feeling remains incommunicable, locked up in the impenetrable strong room of the individual soul and body. Our life is a sentence of perpetual solitary confinement." That sounds depressing, doesn't it? Like we're all trapped in our own heads, unable to truly connect. But Huxley wasn't describing a prison, he was describing a sanctuary. Because in that solitary confinement, in that private inner world that no one else can access, that's where you actually exist. Everything else, all the interaction, all the communication, all the connection, it's translation, it's approximation, it's you trying to explain the unexplainable. In solitude, you don't have to translate, you don't have to approximate, you don't have to explain yourself to anyone, including yourself. You just are. And when you just are, something remarkable happens. You realize how much of your daily life is performance. How many of your actions are designed solely to be acceptable to others? You wake up at a certain time, not because your body wants to, but because society says you should. You dress a certain way not because it feels good, but because it looks appropriate. You say certain things not because they're true, but because they're expected. You don't even realize how disconnected you've become from your actual self until you spend time alone and notice that you act completely differently when no one's watching. You eat differently, you move differently, you think differently, you are differently. This is what solitude shows you, who you are when you're not being someone else for someone else. When you're not adjusting yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for your true shape. When you're not contorting yourself to be palatable, acceptable, lovable. In solitude, you stop behaving to fit a standard and start acting from pure being, from survival, from aliveness, from raw, unfiltered humanness. And yes, what you find there might be uncomfortable. You might discover that you're weirder than you thought, sadder than you admitted, angrier than you allowed yourself to be. You might find parts of yourself that are odd, ugly, unacceptable by society's standards. Good. Those parts need air, they need acknowledgement, they need integration. Because here's what nobody tells you about solitude. It's not about becoming a better person. It's about becoming a whole person. It's about reclaiming all the parts of yourself you've exiled in order to fit in. Solitude grounds you in what is, not what should be. It forces you to confront reality without the buffer of other people's opinions, society's expectations, or your own delusions about who you're supposed to be. This is why solitude is both infuriating and freeing. Infuriating because you can't escape yourself. You can't distract yourself with other people's drama. You can't lose yourself in playing a role. You're stuck with the raw, unedited version of you. But it's also freeing for the exact same reason, because that raw, unedited version, that's the only real version. Everything else is just costume. In solitude, you have no choice but to contemplate the bigger picture. Why are you here? What are you doing? What actually matters? These aren't philosophical abstractions when you're alone. They're immediate, pressing questions that demand answers. And here's the most important thing solitude teaches you. The only time you can see a structure clearly is when you step outside of it. When you're constantly surrounded by people, constantly engaged in society, constantly playing your roles, you can't see the system you're trapped in. You can't see the invisible rules you're following. You can't see the prison bars because you're too busy decorating your cell. But in solitude, you step outside, you see the whole game. You realize that most of what you thought was necessary is actually optional. Most of what you thought was important is actually meaningless. Most of what you thought was you is actually just programming. This is why people fear solitude. Not because being alone is inherently scary, but because being alone with yourself means confronting who you really are beneath all the masks. It means admitting that maybe you don't like the person you've become. It means acknowledging that maybe you've been living someone else's life. But here's the thing, that fear is the gateway. On the other side of that discomfort is freedom, real freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be whoever you are. In solitude, you discover that you don't need anyone else to complete you because you were never incomplete. You don't need anyone else to validate you because your existence is validation enough. You don't need anyone else to love you because, and this is the real secret, you are love. You're just too busy looking for it outside yourself to notice. Loneliness isn't about being alone. Loneliness is about abandoning yourself. It's about being so focused on external connection that you've lost the internal connection. It's about being so desperate for others to see you that you've stopped seeing yourself. The cure for loneliness isn't more people, it's more you. It's returning to yourself. It's remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And you can only do that in solitude. So the next time you find yourself alone, resist the urge to immediately fill that space. Don't reach for your phone. Don't turn on the TV. Don't create noise to avoid the silence. Sit with it. Sit with yourself. Let the discomfort come. Let the fear arise. Let all the things you've been running from catch up to you. Because in that moment, in that sacred idleness, in that profound nothing, you'll find everything. You'll find that loneliness was just an idea. You'll find that you were never actually alone. You'll find that the person you've been looking for your entire life was with you all along. They were just waiting for you to stop looking elsewhere and finally come home. Solitude isn't empty space, it's where you're most full. Solitude isn't isolation, it's where you're most connected. Solitude isn't lonely, it's where you finally meet yourself. And that meeting, that's the most important appointment you'll ever keep. So keep it, regularly, religiously, like your life depends on it. Because in a very real way, it does.